Welcome, everyone, to the last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast. We're coming to you live from Gibson Truck World Studio here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors. It's located at Celebration Point here in Gainesville, Florida. And man, Brad, it's awesome to get started today. I'm your co-host, TJ White. I got Brad Carman next to me. I'm ready to jump into this already, man.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about this week. We got some interesting things going on this week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It really is, and sometimes we get going a little slow, but I mean, we won't have time to go slow today. It's packed with information. I mean, this week just kept giving it to us.
Well, and you look, the weeks past, we've had some questionings, who you're going to start, who to play. This week, we got to really start looking who you're going to start, who you're going to play.
I mean, it's wild to see the change that happened from week 8 going into week 9. So, I want to say a special thanks to our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company, Paisano Stonefire Pizza, Door-to-Door Transport, our studio sponsor, Gibson Truck World, for their continued support, and also Viking Companies for the newest member of the team. And I want to say special thanks to all of them for joining and being part of this podcast and part of the show that we do live every day from Spurrier's here every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. They're all live. They're all active. Send in your comments. I know you've got a ton this week. We got a ton of questions asked during the week. Send them in. We're going to answer them live for you. We'll see what they are, and maybe Brad and I can help you get another win and maybe be in a playoff hunt. I know they're starting to put out some big percentages on your local on your shows, where if you're going to make it or not make it, and this might be your make or break week, Brad.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with all the different changes that's happened this last week and everything we're going to talk about today. There's a lot to discuss, a lot to figure out who's going to be in your starting lineup here by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and so you can find us on multiple platforms that you listen to podcasts. Go check them out. Find us. You can also email us at lastgasfantasy@gmail.com or go to the website to see our sponsors. Click their links at www.lastgasp.com and check them out. They're on there. Go visit their page. If you need them for something, they're great local businesses, and they'll really do what they need for you. Brad, let's get going. Let's do some recap and start going over last week's game and then busting out going into this week's.
Yeah, let's jump into it with the recap. But before we do that, real quick, if you got questions, go ahead and ask them as we're going through this. We'll stop, answer your questions as we're going. Do it on the Facebook page through comments. But there we go. A Week 8 recap. We had the Giants versus the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is still struggling to turning the ball over, but they do get the win. They win 20-17. He's just got to get things back together.
Yeah, and when we talked about it a little bit last week, I said take Giants money line on there, and it was dead on. Giants had an opportunity. They intercept it. They get a PI or a holding penalty, and it flips the script. They go down, kick a field goal to tie it, and then end it with another field goal late. And it's just the Giants season all in a nutshell. That team is playing well, and they're playing better. The Chiefs are lucky to be at 500 right now, and lucky to even be in a playoff contention. They've got a lot of work to do, and they've got the hardest schedule coming up in the league. I mean, the next 8-9 games I doubt that they'll be a winning team at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for them to make the playoffs this year. The next game is my Cowboys versus the Vikings. You said keep Dak out. They did, and they end up winning. Yeah. I was nervous, but they end up winning.
I mean, we talked about it, and it was a risk-reward factor that they had the ability to take. When you're sitting 6-1 atop of a very bad division, and having that opportunity to really – it's almost a smart move to get a backup quarterback like Cooper Rush in there to get some experience in case Dak does get out of game or has to fill in for a couple plays. He's not nervous coming off the bench. He had a big play to Cooper at the end of the game there to take the win late in that game. And, it's always good to get a win on the road. I mean, or I think they were at home, weren't they? But it's still always good to get that win whenever you got a backup in.
Washington 10, Broncos 17. Again, 2 more interceptions, 2 more offensive linemen hurt, 2 more field goals blocked. I mean, it was a little bit of a messy game there. And
I mean that's the thing that W Washington football team. I hope one day they're going to actually get a mascot or do something with that because they've got to do something about their name change. And the Broncos, go in there, get a steal here. They get it 17-10. Washington loses again. That division we just talked about it with Dallas. That the closest team that might even be put a even question mark them are Philly, and Philly went out and put up a good game, and we thought they would, and they put up big numbers against that. So it's great to see that there's a potential that Philly could be in that division, but with Washington losing now, Washington and New York are both not in that, and that division's pretty well wrapped up.
Yes. The Bucs go out and suffer their second loss of the season. They lose 27-36 against the Saints. Tom Brady has thrown a pick six as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Has thrown 3 picks, and 2 of them were against the Saints.
You know, this tightened up our division tremendously. I mean, you want to win your interdivisional games more than anything else because it comes to head down the road, and they laid an egg on this.
Yes, they did.
And it's not even questionable that the Saints earned that win and put it on them the whole time. Tom Brady made some big mistakes, but that's Tom Brady. They're going to make the playoffs, and they need to get healthy.
Yeah.
You had Gronk that didn't start. His ribs are still hurt. You had Antonio Brown's ankle still hurt. You lost an offensive lineman. Your running game wasn't established there. You know, they've got some work to do. And right now they're only a win game up on the New Orleans Saints. The Bucs are 6-2. The Saints are 5-2. So technically, win percentage wise, the Saints are ahead of them, but they'll go to overall wins over that. But so the Bucs don't have a lot of room to make mistakes, and that NFC is loaded with good teams right now.
And we'll see what happens with the Saints. Jameis Winston suffered a leg injury. He's feared to be out the rest of the season now. Michael Thomas is not going to play this season because he's out for the season. So the Saints got a few injuries they got to overcome themselves.
Well, and that's the thing is I picked up Thomas early in the season. I picked him about week 3 or week 4, knowing that he'd come back from the IR about week 8 or 9 and actually fill in because he'd be healthy to come in versus when you lose the guys like, Odell or some Antonio Brown or some of those guys that really get hurt during the season or just leave a team. And he just never got healthy. And I want to say that they knew he was never going to come back, but just never said anything. And it seems really weird that he was on IR until this game. And then they have him in practice a couple of times. And now, guess what? He's not playing the rest of the season. Like, there's something when it stinks like that, there's a smell to it, Brad. And then when they say there's smoke, there's fire, and there was definitely smoke all season on this one.
Well, we both picked the Jaguars to come back and win 2 in a row. I mean, they did have a bye week the week before. They didn't do it. Jaguars get beat 31-7 against Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's shocking about this team. They went there off of a good win. They have a bye week to prepare. Meyer's always done well with bye weeks to prepare his team. And they go out and just get
slaughtered.
Get beat by Seattle. And Seattle wasn't coming off of 3 straight losses. So it's a surprise, but if you're a Jags fan, I guess you kind of expected it. Those Jags fans know how to lose in the best way possible. Jaguar fans just keep trucking along and hopefully you'll turn the tides for you.
And one of the better games of the week was the New England Patriots versus the Chargers. Came down to a 27-24 win for the Patriots. And the funny thing is, this is New England's first win over a non-rookie quarterback.
That's a wild stat right there alone. I mean, he had a monster week last week, and to see them, I mean, they're 4-4. The Bills are 5-3, I think, right now. So it is not that division might tighten up a little bit if you're not careful. And if the Bills don't handle their business, I think the Bills is a better team.
Yes,
but that is not a runaway right now in that division like everybody thought it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right. Chubb comes back for the Browns, but doesn't pull off the victory. The Steelers win 15-10.
Man, how many games are these Steelers going to win by scoring 12, 13, 15? I mean, I think they won 10-9 a week ago or something like that. I mean, they're not putting up any points, but that defense is keeping them alive and keeping the games. It always has.
I say they're still in the playoff hunt right now.
I mean, yeah, their division right now is wide open, and we've talked about it. The worst team in that division is 4-4, Cleveland. If you think about that, and it's Cincinnati's right above them, the Steelers are right there, and you got Baltimore all battling. I mean, that might be one of those years where it's one of the NFC your division where they go a 500 team might win the division, but that's because they're beating up on each other, not because they're bad teams.
Exactly. Like you mentioned earlier, the Eagles come out and they really put it up against the Lions. It was a double-digit spread on this, but 44-6. Wow.
No, we talked about it. We said start Jalen Hurts. We said start Eagle players. We hate to keep picking on the Lions because they're bad, but I saw a great meme. It was something that said some girls team. It was a picture of like some cheerleaders, and they were putting on pads and doing stuff like they do that. And then it had the Lions, and it had that team 56 and the Lions 0. And so it's great, they're just down right now, and you want to see them get better, but you don't know where they got. I think Matt Patricia's days there as the head coach are very, very limited. I think he's going to be gone, and it's just you don't know what. This is looking like 0-17 all over, or 0-16, whatever it's going to be by the end of the season. So, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be bad for them this year.
Another hard loss last week was the Bengals. The Jets come out and beat the Bengals 34-31. Who is this Mike White? Now, you and I talked about Mike White last week. Somebody keep an eye on. I was going to root for him, but it's hard to root for him against the Bengals. Well, he did it.
No, and he torched him. You kind of mentioned him, and who was Mike White? And he was from Bronson. He's a local guy from around here, is what you said. And we're going to recap 2 of his games because they played that week, and then he also played the Thursday night game, which it's tough because he gets hurt. He was 95 yards, I think 1 TD, and was actually doing pretty well. And Cincinnati comes off of a great week. They beat Baltimore, and they take lead in the division, and then go lay this against the Jets. And I don't think they laid it. I mean, the Jets earned it. But this wasn't expected from the Jets. It's like the Gator game last night. I hate to talk about them, but South Carolina smoked them. So it's like you just never expected it, being big underdogs, and they come out and just do a job and work them.
Yeah, I do need to correct myself. Mike White's ties are to Williston.
Oh, Williston.
I did say Bronson, but I meant Williston.
Okay, yeah.
But he threw for 400 and some odd yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He's the second quarterback to ever do that. The first one was Cam Newton as their first start.
Wow.
So he's in the record books now. I saw something the other day. He's been cut 4 times over the last year, and now he's in the NFL Hall of Fame.
that is wild, man. No, that is unreal, and it's to think about how you get through those progressions and remove and learn and get better, and then you get an opportunity to step in and play. You can't be more happy for that guy to put in the time and put in the effort and then go out and show it and think, hey, I can compete with the best of the guys,
Yeah, and one reason I follow Mike White is one is ties he has to Williston, but the other one is he was a Dallas Cowboy draft pick.
Yeah.
He was a 5th round, 171st pick by the Dallas Cowboys. I thought he would be following Dak Prescott and his backup quarterback, Dak Prescott. Now, they had Andy Dalton, they had Cooper Rush there, so I understand that they had to pick a quarterback to trade off. My heart, I wish they would have kept him.
Yeah. So, Brad, let's go into some the biggest surprise this week. We've got some other talking points, and I think we can get through those in a minute or two. But let's do the surprise and figure out who surprised you the most this week, or what game surprised you the most this week.
The game that surprised me, again, we'll go right back to, is the Bengals and the Jets. I didn't expect the Bengals to lose this game. Yeah. I expected the Bengals to come out and play like they played against Baltimore and win. Jets were coming off a first starting quarterback, Mike White, and Mike really just went out there and played his heart out. And
like you said, the big surprise there too was Michael Carter goes 17 catches, 162 yards over the past 2 games. Carter's been a big success story for them, and he's been on a lot of fantasy waiver wires. So fantasy owners out there, he's probably taken right now, but you could have easily picked him up last week, no doubt. He was on the top of the board for everybody. He's been kind of hit or miss, but he is absolutely a huge, should be rostered on every roster, period.
Yeah, he ended up with 15 carries, 70 yards, but the main thing, like you said last week, was out of the backfield catching the ball. Yeah. Now, they did play Thursday night. He did okay this week. He got me 10 points. I do have him on my team.
Yeah. But no, the thing, too, is that it's, my biggest surprise last week was the Tampa Bay and Saints game. When you think about that, it is an absolute travesty on that game right there where they should not have lost that game.
No.
And it's, Brady still goes 28 for 40. He's got 375 and 4 TDs. You got Alvin Kamara goes 19 carries, 61 yards and a TD. You got Godwin throwing, 8 catches, 140 yards and a TD. The big thing here too is you lose Jameis Winston and Mike Thomas for the year, and yet you're still in the playoff hunt. You're still in it, fighting for it, and that is a surprise for me. They lost a bad game early in the season to, when the first game at home that they shouldn't have lost. And they could be right in this really fast.
Yeah, you got to figure, they have Taysom Hill there, but they're going to start Trevor Siemian.
Yeah.
See how Siemian goes out and does. These rookie quarterbacks, these younger quarterbacks, they're starting to perform. They had a rough beginning of the season, but let's see what these guys can do now.
Yeah, and like you said, that's a guy on the waiver wire. If you need a big swing and a miss or you want to try to go for the fences, Trevor Siemian is starting for New Orleans tonight or today, so take a look at him. He used to play for Denver, was his last team that he started for. He might have been moved around from there, but he has some experience, and, it's potential that he could go off, and you pick him up now and have him for later on in the year. We want to do a special thanks to our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company, bringing over 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to Gainesville and surrounding communities. Also, Paisano's Stone-Fired Pizza. Whether you're looking for a quick lunch or dinner destination to meet up with friends and family, Paisano's is your place. Celebrate life's most memorable moments with dishes, whether in your dining room or ours. Also, want to say a special thanks to Gibson Truck World for being our studio sponsor, Spurrier Gridiron Grill and Visors for having us here every Sunday morning at 11, and Weeby Marketing for their continued support of this show. Also, to Viking Companies for being a continued sponsor of our show. We also, want to throw something out there. We started something new last week. We got to meet a bunch of the listeners on Thursday night. It's the Paisanos Knockout of the Night. We did it right here at Celebration Point on the open area. It was beautiful. The weather was 65, and got to talk to them. And we gave the lucky winner the $25 gift card to Paisanos, and it was an absolute great, and they loved it.
Yeah, it was a great time out here talking to people about fantasy football. Who are they going to start? Who are they going to sit? Looking at the injury reports, stuff like that. And we had a great time. Congratulations to Ron J for winning the knockout in the first last Gasp knockout competition.
Yeah, and so it was great. He was surprised, and it's great. The local people will get them, and come on out. Give yourself a chance, and we'll see you here. Brad, we're going to move to the biggest player performance and surprise, and I'm going to go to your team. Now, I know that you don't know what I pick sometimes, and I don't know what you pick until we get in here. And you didn't set me up for this one and say, hey, you have to do a Dallas. But we're going to go to the Dallas team. And when you talk about what could have happened in that game and what Cooper could have done and not done well, he played very well. He went 24 for 40. He had 325, 2 TDs, and as a fantasy over, that's serviceable.
Yes.
I mean, he's not going to start whenever Dak's in, and he's not going to do that. But just think about that on your bench as a fantasy owner. That if you need to fill in, you can trust in Cooper Rush after what you saw him do right there.
Yeah, Cooper Rush is a reliable backup quarterback in the league. I don't know if he could be a starting quarterback in our league. But he is a reliable backup.
And the other player that I had on my surprise is there's surprises in fantasy. And Brad, what I'm going to talk about is you have fantasy players who just blow up and do well, and that you can't start, that you got to start them every game, and that's great. This one I'm going to talk about is Davis Mills. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because it's fantasy, and as this is a fantasy show and we're talking about numbers and how you can win your games, they were down 38-0. 38-0 to the Rams.
Yep.
And they put up, in the last quarter, they put up 22 points. And as a fantasy owner, and you look at his numbers, he went 29 for 38. He had 310 yards and 2 TDs in the last quarter alone. And so, when you look at how you can find missing pieces and bad players and bad teams, that's where it's at. You can find them on garbage time when they're taking them out, when they're giving up. This is a prime example of like a Jacksonville Trevor Lawrence. He throws more yards in the fourth quarter and TDs than he does in the first 3 combined, and it's because they're down.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this on a previous show, that sometimes it's not great to have that winning quarterback that's going to win it in the first half of the game, because then the second half of the game, that quarterback's not going to throw. Yep. He's not going to get you yards. Sometimes it's better to be on that other side of that game on your quarterbacks where they are going to be throwing, trying to catch, get back in the game and get you some points.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. It's when you have teams that go up that big, what do they like to do? Eat the clock, right?
Yep.
And that's when you think about the running game. You think about they just hand it off and just hand it off and hand it off and 45 seconds a trip and call it a day. And so those are my 2 surprise players. And it's one's the positive side, one's the negative side, but they're both fantasy options, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, and I think everyone can guess who my surprise player of the week is. It was Mike White again, throwing 405 yards. He averaged 9 yards an attempt, and then he had 3 touchdowns. What a great performance. We look back at that 2018 draft, quarterback draft. Yeah. You've got people in
absolutely
there
loaded,
like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, Mason Rudolph. All these guys have started in the NFL.
Yeah, no, it's that draft class there was absolutely loaded, and I think when you come to see the final numbers, there are going to be some Hall of Famers in that. I think when it's all said and done, Allen and Jackson have a good chance to get in there.
Yeah.
And like you said, serviceable quarterbacks. Rudolph's going to be he's behind. I think he was with
Pittsburgh
for a little bit, but I don't know if he's still there or not. And you got Sam Darnold. He's in Carolina. He had a really good start of the season, but he's just kind of faded off. But he's still a starter there, so we'll see what happens. See if he continues to go and go from there, and we'll hope that it happens there.
Baker's over in Cleveland.
Yeah, Baker's there. That's a whole nother ball of wax. That's just wild there with the stuff that's happened this week, and that's just hard to follow that story. You know, Brad, who were your biggest disappointments heading into the fantasy week this year?
Well, one of my biggest appointments is one that we said you must start was Kyle Pitts. He didn't have a great start to the season. He got on fire 2 and 3 weeks ago, and then this week he has what, 3 receptions? No, 2 catches this week
for 13 yards.
For 13 yards,
Yeah.
coming off consecutive 100-yard games.
And that's the weird part. I think that's the rookie in him, and I think that's what happens here is that with the seasoned veterans, they find a way to get the ball required to come to them, like the Kelseys, like the big names out there. You know, even Kelsey last week, I think he had 3 catches for 15-yard or 4, and he wasn't a big surprise on that big game against the Giants. He disappeared.
Yeah.
But you know, there has to be said about getting the ball to your playmakers, and he's 100% one of the playmakers for Atlanta, and so he's not in a position to demand what they should do, but they've got to do a better job of managing him in that situation and managing him in those roles as an Atlanta Falcon. You know,
Agreed.
You know, my big thing is, and we touched base on it just a little bit ago, the Bengals losing to the Ravens. You know, and it's just there's no way they should have come. I mean, losing to the Jets. Mm-hmm. There's no way they should have lost to the Jets coming off beating the Ravens. That's a mindset problem. And the Bengals, if they're going to want to be a contending, winning team, and they want to do fantasy and they want to do better, they've got to be a mindset of I want to win every week, and it didn't seem like they were.
I think this is a true case of overlooking a team.
Yep. And it was all evident on the field. I mean, and they came back in the second half and really tried to push for it, but the Jets earned it and won. I mean, they got it and took it all to the end.
Yeah. You know, let's talk a little bit about what's gone on this week. Derrick Henry, last week we sat here and talked about him. He was the bell cow. He was going to be the man unless he got hurt.
Yep.
Well, guess what? He's on IR, guys. What do you do?
Way to go, Brad. Way to jinx him, man.
Do you go get Jeremy McNichols? Do you get Adrian Peterson?
No.
Who's going to start for them? Who's going to be their major running back this week?
Right. Well, you know, and that's the thing. You know, that's the question. We just got a question on Facebook. Comments, come on, comment in. Send your questions in. We got a question. Do you start AP this week? And that's the question here. We just brought it in with the Henry Ruggs thing. Is that he goes on IR. You know, I had a guy that I was driving here to do the show, and I rolled down my window. A guy say hi to him, and he goes, "Do you drop Derrick Henry?" And I said, "Yes. If it's not a keeper league, he's not going to be back until the playoffs."
Yeah.
And so the season's going to be over before he comes back from being healthy is what I've heard, everything that I'm hearing.
Yeah, if you have an IR spot, you put him in the IR spot because
Yeah.
that's the same as dropping him, except for no one else can pick him up.
Right.
And if something were to be a miracle and he'd come back, you got him. So, but if you don't have an IR spot, you have to drop him. You have to go pick up somebody who's going to be playing.
Right. So these are the things you learned. He's the best running back in the league, who had the most points, was leading everything, and you're going to drop him. And that's what we're going to tell you to do because that's what you have to do. So you think about that. You think about going on there. And as we talk through that, Jeremy McNichols might be the answer. I'm not saying he wouldn't be. He has proven to fill a pretty decent spot for them, Brad.
Well, what I've been reading about is Jeremy McNichols was going to be the prime ball carrier this week. Well, they have elevated Adrian Peterson to the practice squad and now to the active roster, and they said he's going to be the early downs carrier. McNichols is going to be hot out of the backfield as your receiver out of the backfield. Yeah. If you're in a PPR league, that's great. If you're not in a PPR league, who do you play?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's an Adrian Peterson day.
And so, Brad, you know me, I'm always on the prove it side, meaning you have to prove it before I start you. And I just don't like taking swings in fantasy where you're hoping that the guy you play goes off.
Correct.
And to me, AP is the biggest gamble in there. He wasn't even on practice squad. Now that dude's a freak of nature. I get it. He's a stud, but I can't take a swing on him this week. And I mean, I don't see it.
So let me throw a question out there.
Yeah.
You got Dearness Johnson for Cleveland.
Yeah.
You got McNichols for Tennessee, and you got AP for Tennessee. Who you playing?
I'm Dearness Johnson all day long.
Okay.
He's proven that he can run the ball. He's proven that he's healthy, and that Cleveland offense loves to run the ball. I'm taking him all day long. So we'll mention this for one thing for the passing game, Brad. You know, this show is all about positivity and bringing positive things to life, and you know, talking good things into the world, and just being that kind of show. The Henry Ruggs situation is a tragedy. It's terrible, and what we're going to talk about as a fantasy show is how does that affect Derek Carr and that passing game?
Correct.
You know, just last week, you know, somebody messaged me and say, who do I keep between Renfro, Ruggs, and Osborne? We talked about it, and I said, keep Ruggs and Renfro, something's going to happen.
Correct.
And not knowing that was going to happen, I'm just shocked. But now he's got Renfro. Now he's got that. He's going to get a lot more passes. And who's going to fill the void of that position? And we talked about it. Brian Edwards might step up in that spot.
Correct. Well, the answer to the question now is go back and pick up Osborne. But, yeah, Brian Edwards is going to have to step up and be a player.
Yep.
I think Ruggs, with Ruggs being out, Renfro's going to get a lot more looks. And I think Waller's going to be come back in this this receiving corps.
And that's the thing is that they don't throw as much as I thought they were going to this year.
Right.
And they disperse the ball a lot, but they're a very diligent offense. They run it very effectively with Jacobs and that team there. They pass when they need to, but they're not a fast-moving offense. They're very, very, blase blah when it comes to that, but they're getting wins.
Yes.
And so, for a fantasy team, this is a team you can look out for to try to find points from a receiver that you might not have. And Brian Edwards is going to be a waiver wire pickup later in the show, and he's going to be a sleeper pick. So hopefully, there's something to that. The next thing, Brad, that we have on here is where does OBJ land?
Well, what does it do for Cleveland?
Yep.
I mean, people are going to have to step up in for Cleveland. And where does he land? The obvious spots are New Orleans Saints, Las Vegas Raiders. Yep. Those are two teams that just lost major wide receivers. Yep. Does he go there? Does he perform? Does his head get bigger than the game?
Yeah. And Brad, I think this is where the question for fantasy owners, and I was going to ask this, coming up right now, is as a fantasy owner, as a team owner with multiple teams and doing things like that, how does this affect his fantasy value? He was in Cleveland. I had him. I dropped him. I told everybody to drop him 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I hope you listened because he hasn't performed. Now his dad goes and puts this video out. Baker doesn't know. There's a lot of turmoil. Cleveland makes an agreement. They drop him. He's going to be picked up. He's too talented not to be picked up. The question is, what happens to a player's fantasy value at that point?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good questions, and it all depends on who picks them up too. Because you go to a Las Vegas Raiders that are with a brand new coach now. You got a veteran quarterback that can he take him under his wing?
Yeah.
You go to a New Orleans Saints that has a veteran coach but a brand new starting quarterback. Is there any leadership there, or does he come in and cause chaos in the
reins there?
Yeah, in the reins of making it work. So it's a difficult situation. It depends where he goes, whether he's got any fantasy value or not.
So Brad, I can't agree more with you on that. And the thing that gets me, though, is Las Vegas, in my opinion, shouldn't get him.
No.
Because they've got, between losing their coach, losing their receiver, and having all that turmoil there, the last thing they want is a locker room internal battle about a player coming in and not getting catches and balls. And that's what he's always been. He's been a whiner. Let's be real. He has talent on the field, but he's always been a whiner, and they don't need that in there. Just like you said, New Orleans, he's going to get – Winston was there. I'd say it's a good pickup, but like you said, new quarterback, who knows what's going to happen there. I think it's a terrible play there. My final destination for you, and it's going to be a shocker, is I think even with a little bit of turmoil they've got with their quarterback not playing this week, is Green Bay. I think he goes to Green Bay. I think he goes across from Devontae Adams. I think Rodgers comes back after being out for a couple weeks, and I think he starts there.
Green Bay would be a great position because Rodgers could take him under his wing and calm him down and stuff, sort of like Brady did with Antonio Brown.
Yep.
Tampa would be an awesome location for him. They don't need him, though.
They don't need him, yeah.
So they're not going to take him. I'm looking at Philadelphia.
Yeah, you think so?
I would like to see Philadelphia get him.
That would be an interesting pickup. And so there's our picks right there. We got Brad says he's going to Philly. I say he's going to Green Bay. While we're on that conversation, and we don't, and it's a strange turn of events there in Green Bay with Rodgers. Don't put Rodgers in your lineup this week. He's out. He's out for this week. He's probably going to be out for next week. He's on the COVID protocol list. We're going to talk about him in there, but is Jordan Love a viable start to fill in him?
We talked about this a couple weeks ago, too, that I said that Jordan Love was in one of the most perfect situations. Get behind a veteran quarterback and learn. He's been there for a few years now. He's learned. I think Jordan Love's going to be a great play this week.
So there it is. We're going to head on the break right now. We'll come back and catch you on the other side and catch you up on waiver wires and who to pick for this week's games.
Gibson Truck World's expert team of sales and service staff will show you why we have been the pioneer of used trucks since 1995. With our 1-year bumper-to-bumper warranty valid across the entire United States, our exclusive 15-day exchange policy, and our $1,000 best price guarantee, it's easy to see why we're the #1 used truck dealership in all of Florida. Please call, visit, or explore our website today to see for yourself why we are the king of trucks.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Welcome back, everyone, to the last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast, coming to you live from the Gibson Truck World studio here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill Advisors, here at Celebration Point in Gainesville, Florida. We're glad to have you, Brad. It's great to have you, man. It's good to be back on here. Make sure you send in your questions, your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Hit us up. Bring them in, man.
And today is the first day we've been here live at Spurrier's that the restaurant's actually open. And look at the crowd here today. It's beautiful. Lots of people coming in for brunch. If you haven't tried this place out, come down here and try this out.
Yeah, man. It's packed right now. It's a great atmosphere. They can see us doing the show. And this is what it's all about, man. Having a good time.
Yes.
Talking fantasy football on a Sunday morning and just really getting your Sunday started off right. We're going to go and talk about buys this week. And then we'll go into waiver wires and injury reports and go on to that part of it. But as we get going, just to remind everybody, the Lions are on a bye. The Bucks are on a bye after a much-needed loss last week. My Bucks are reeling, so hopefully they get a little healthy. Seahawks are also on a bye, which I think Russell Wilson comes back, I think, after the bye week.
After the bye week.
After the bye week, and see if they can get back in the playoff hunt in the the NFC side. And the Washington football team is on the last team. So those are your 4 buys this week. Make sure you check out your players. Make sure that you don't have anybody starting on those teams. And make sure you find out what's going on. I had a buddy Thursday night ask me, he said, who should I pick up? I got this player, and he's on a bye. And I said, well, just drop him. Don't put him in your lineup. Yeah, leave it empty until you have time to fill it in. And he goes, okay. So, he'll find somebody and put him in. But I was like, you got to make sure you pay attention that your guy is not, that you don't have a player on the bench that you want to play on a Thursday night, and then he's not playing there, Brad.
Yeah, we got a lot of teams on buys, but I wish I could buy me some running backs right now.
Oh, no doubt. Brad, you wanted to bring up a topic on a question about the Jets, and what would you say is that battle there?
Well, you got a battle of this new quarterback now, Mike White, versus Zach Wilson. Mike went out in his first starting game and threw 400 some odd yards, 3 touchdowns. He comes out in the second game, second drive of the game, takes him down, scores a touchdown. Unfortunately, gets injured. It's just a forearm injury. He was okay to go back in the fourth quarter, I was told, but because the game was out of control, they didn't want to get him hurt. But now he's scheduled to start this week against Buffalo, which would be a great game for him because he's going to be throwing the ball like crazy against Buffalo. But if Zach Wilson is healthy, who starts? And if Zach Wilson is not healthy, and then Mike comes out and has a successful game against Buffalo, then really, I think we get a controversy.
Well, and I think you drafted Wilson to be your guy.
Number 3 overall, right?
And he's been serviceable, but the question is who's the best player and how they perform on the field. And I think they're going to have to determine that internally, and it's going to play out on the field a little bit between Mike and Zach, who plays better and what the numbers are. But it's ultimately going to be that it's got to be who gives us the best chance to win today, and then if that's what they are today, can that be continued in the future?
Well, the stat shows that there have been more touchdowns thrown by a backup quarterback on their team than Zach has thrown. So. It draws a quick question. I mean, is he the right player for the right team?
Yeah, and we just got a Facebook question, Brad, and I'm going to ask it on there. Do you start Emmanuel Sanders or Chuba Hubbard? I say Chuba Hubbard. That's what his name is. I love the name for the Panthers, or Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, in your flex position.
I'm going to go.
Because that's a hard one, because Emmanuel Sanders laid a goose egg last week and got 0 points. Chuba Hubbard's here. They say McCaffrey's potentially playing today, and they said don't give up on Emmanuel, but we'll see what's happening.
I'm going to Emmanuel Sanders. With that Buffalo offense and with that firepower, I think you've got to stay with Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, and that's the battle there is, even though he gave you a 0 last week, you got to stay with him. So that's a hard question there. I'm glad it's not my problem, and then that's really what it is. You know, we got a Facebook comment here that said you have to keep in White. I agree. You have to stay with White. And you can't get, like he's saying, just like we talked about Dak last week about not getting hurt and wanting to be healthy for the playoffs, you don't want your franchise quarterback having to feel like he has to come in and prove something and get hurt more.
Against Buffalo, I agree. But how about moving forward?
Yeah.
I mean, do you continue? I mean, you got to get Zach the reps. So if he's back healthy and ready to play, and he's going to be your franchise quarterback, put him back in the game.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to injury report. There are quite a few big names out there that are hurt, Brad, and really talking about it. We'll start off with, and I'll let you get there, but I'm going to start off with, we already know it, Dak Prescott. Is he playing today or not?
He's expected to play. Let me scroll down to that column, but they said that he's been practicing and is expected to come back and play this week.
Okay, he is supposed to play. I think the next one that we talked about, the biggest surprise there, Brad, is Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. Some people are picking him as your sleeper this week. So,
and he's supposed to be back. When he was playing with Houston, they were a much better team. They were really good, and it was really impressive to see how well he was with that team and how much they missed him.
Yeah, he has their only victory.
Yeah.
So
well, and that's against Jacksonville. So that's not saying much, Brad. Give me that's like saying, that's like how the Dolphins got their wins, But anyway, next one, Michael Thomas out for the season. We talked about it. He's on IR. He's not coming back. So that's a big blow to the Saints receiving core. It's a big blow to fantasy owners that have him as a backup. So good luck there finding his backup. The other name here that we got on this is Derrick Henry, Brad.
Yep. Out on IR. He's going to have foot surgery. It says he should be out for about 2 months. Again, that's going to put us towards the end of the fantasy season. So if you do not have an IR spot, it's worth a drop.
Yeah. Also, Brad we have Rob Gronkowski, Gronk. I just say Gronk anymore. I love it, but that's what it is. It's Gronk's out. He's hurt. Back spasms again. What do you got with him?
It says that to monitor him. He came back last week and then went out with back spasms. That's an interesting injury because the back spasms could be something that's going to happen for a week and be good or not. So it's something to monitor. I say he's a sit this week, though.
Okay. Also got James Robinson. He is got a bruised heel, Brad.
He says he should be back this week or next week. He's kind of leaving it up in the air for us. With a bruised heel as a running back, it's not a promising thing to start this week, though.
Yeah, no, and it really is on a running back when you're cutting your ability to move, to do the things of those nature. It's a really big play there, so keep an eye on him.
Sam Darnold went out with a concussion. He's on concussion protocol, but he says he has an opportunity to play this week. So if he can pass his concussion protocol test, he'll be on the field.
Yeah, I think he'll play. I think they need him to play in Carolina.
I do too.
And I think, they're still in my division. They're still a little bit behind. They haven't been playing great, and they need him to start stepping up a little bit when they picked him up. He played pretty well in the beginning of the season. He's kind of fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley's out for the Atlanta Falcons, wide receiver for personal issues. That should put Kyle Pitts back in a better situation to get some more catches there.
Yep, and that's a weird story right there.
Yeah.
If you've been watching that and following that, it's hard to see somebody with that much talent, with it's a mental game as much as it's physical, and it's a grind to play the season that they play, and it's hard. It's nobody, unless you've done it and you're working in it and you do it every day, you don't know the toll that it has on your physicality and your mental stability. And so for him to be able to evaluate himself and say I need to get this handled is utmost respect for that, utmost respect that team for letting him do that. And we wish the best for him and his family and hope that he gets it handled and gets healthy.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like we talked about, Brad, mental health on these football games is just the biggest factor. OBJ has got it too. And there's other players that have had it that you just have to have a mindset to go out there and know how to perform each week and be able to compete at a high level. I mean, that's a big part of NFL football versus like the college game and high school game.
And I think if you look at Antonio Brown, he went through this a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Now I think he's gotten into a better place in a better team and he's working things out. But I think mental issues are a humongous thing when you get into the NFL.
Yeah, and so it's a battle. So it's great to see. I'm hoping that he gets better, and we'll move on to the next guy there.
T.I. Hilton did not play Thursday night. He was out with a concussion protocol. He should be back in for the following week, but he's not playing them today.
Right.
Damon Williams for the Chicago Bears, knee injury. He has left last week's game with the knee injury and should be monitored. Probably not a good play.
Yeah. So he's been a good fill-in. He's been a great play. He's got me a few points each week. He's done well, but like you said, knee injuries are tough to tell and see where they're at. So hopefully he'll come back. If you got somebody else on your bench or in a flex position, throw him in there. Don't take your chance on Damon. He's a sit this week.
Jalen Reagor with the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver. He sprained his ankle last week. It looks like he's going to play.
Yep, and that's true. Yeah, I think he's going to be playing. I think he'll be fine out there.
Chris Boswell, the kicker, concussion. He has a chance to play this week.
Yeah, so be monitoring that. He's not a start play for me anyway because they don't put up enough points for him to be out there kicking. I mean, they're putting up 10, 12 points a game. I mean, there's so many other kickers out there that are absolutely scoring more points, and he is not on there. Don't start him. Don't play him. Don't have him on your team. Just leave him on the waiver wires out there and let somebody else make that mistake.
We spoke about this guy already. Russell Wilson is supposed to come back after the bye week. Chris Carson, again, he's not going to play this week, but he's coming back off IR. He's looking to try to play on week 10, which would be great for me because I had Chris Carson and Derrick Henry and lost them both to IR.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's a hard thing to do, and we were just talking about it. Got another Facebook Live question that is AP a sexy pick this week? And you already said it. You've already said yes. Chris Carson coming back on IR. He's possibly, it's an interesting play there. Seattle has to prove to me that they want to continue to run the ball. And that's why I have it between Seattle and New England. Those running back stables are hard to tell. Same with Baltimore. Those three teams like to run the ball and eat up clock, but who knows who's going to touch it? I mean, we talked about Baltimore's backfield's a mess right now. We don't know if it's Le'Veon Bell. We don't know if it's Latavius Murray. We don't know who it's going to be. And so, those three teams, if you have running backs on there, just flip a coin when you go to set your lineup and just see what happens because that's the best way you're going to pick a name or number out of that, Brad.
Yeah, I was understanding that Christian might be coming back this week, but this says not until week 10, which is another week. I'm trying to look him up right now.
Yeah, I've heard that he is available today. Now, they were going to do monitoring during warm-ups, and we'll see if he plays. If he does not start, I think that question about Chuba Hubbard and Emmanuel Sanders has a big effect now because keep an eye on him going into the next hour, starting up, and being able to make sure he's playing or not playing.
Yeah, the latest news is exactly what you just said. They're going to monitor him during pregame warm-ups, and if he's available to go, he's going to go. They're still going to put him on a playtime.
Yep.
So he's not going to get a full carry, so that does give Chuba some more availability, more.
Yeah, no, you're right, Brad. So, I want to say a special thanks to our sponsors right now, Brad, for their continued support. Archer Electric Services Company, they're bringing you 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to the Gainesville and surrounding communities. Also, Paisano's Stone-Fired Pizza for their continued support of the show, and also sponsoring, Paisano's Knockout of the Night on Thursday with us and come meet and talk fantasy with us. So it's great to have them. Also, Viking Companies and Weeby Marketing for continued support. Brad, that's great. Also, Gibson Truck World for sponsoring the studio. It's awesome. It's fantastic here. And we just can't thank you enough for your continued support of the show and sponsoring us to continue live, Brad. And it's been fantastic, man.
We got another question on the Facebook message board. What's the deal with Kyler Murray and Hopkins? Will they play? What I've just looked up is Hopkins is playing this week. Kyler Murray is the same thing as Christian McCaffrey. They're going to look at him at pregame and determine whether he's able to go. If he's able to go, Kyler Murray's in.
And so here's the hard part there, Brad. Unlike Dallas last week, where they had the flexibility to start a backup and still win that division, there's 2-7. Them and the Rams are both 7-1 in that division. They don't have room to not try to win every game and take that division and be a wild card. They don't want to be a wild card in the NFC right now because you're going to play a team that's hot.
Correct.
And so that's going to be an interesting play. Follow that up closely to game time. Hopkins is definitely a go. I've got him starting in my lineup. He's starting with me, but I would keep an eye on Murray. And if you have somebody that's equal to him, it's hard to say that you would have an equal guy on the bench because of how the numbers he's put up. But if you've got a guy that's even within 2 or 3 points, wait to the last minute and make sure that he's starting, Brad.
Yeah, Lawrence, if you're out there, send us who you do have quarterbacks. I'd like to see what your options are.
Yeah. We're going to go into waiver wire pickups right now, and then we'll go to our pick'ems and pick up the straight games and pick the weeks. 4 names that we've kind of mentioned on the show already, but we'll mention again in waiver wires right now is AP. He's on the active roster. Pick him up, add him in there, and monitor his situation. I don't think he's going to do. I have him as a sit. Brad is actually starting him. He needs the running backs. I have a stable of running backs that have just absolutely dominated for me this year, so I'm not having AP. The next one is Jarvis Landry out of Cleveland. We've just talked about OBJ, and now we're talking about his backup.
Yeah, I think Landry's going to be a viable start. I think he's going to see a lot of looks this week. He gets 6 or 7 catches in a PPR. You're looking at 15, 16 points.
Yeah, so keep an eye on him. Keep him monitored. Jarvis Landry's going to get the ball this week.
Yes,
he is my starter this week. You have to start him. Also, running back, if you need another fill-in, Boston Scott out of Philadelphia. He had, I think, 10, 15 carries, 66 yards, 2 TDs last week.
Yes, he did.
Lit it up, and he's battling for playing time there. He's earned himself a spot on that roster.
Yeah, Boston Scott's definitely a guy that you can go get off most waiver wires and put in and have a reliable running back for a start.
Yep. And then lastly, Brian Edwards. We talked about the wide receiver in Las Vegas. He's a start on this week. We think he's going to have a big week. Run with Renfro and Waller there. But he's got a little bit to prove, and I think he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Derek Carr stay in the air, and he's going to have someone to throw it to. Like you said, he's got Hunter Renfro, he's got Waller, but he needs that other guy. So Edwards is going to be a viable start.
And if you didn't pick up last week, Pat Fryermuth told you to pick him up last week. He did a great job, filled in, had a touchdown, couple catches, 50, 60 yards. So he was a big pickup at tight end. I'd keep him on. He's probably still available and out there.
Okay, TJ. Lawrence got back with us. He has 0 quarterbacks on his roster right now, but Jordan Love is out there on the waiver wire. Is Jordan Love a pickup to replace Murray this week?
That's a tough question, and I'm not. That's not a bad problem to have. I think the problem with getting Jordan Love is that the wide receivers are hurt there, and you're only got the running backs. I think they're going to run the ball 50 times in Green Bay this week, and they might do the little dinks and dunks. So he's going to have high completion rate. He might go 30 for 40, but he's not going to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. And that's what Green Bay is going to do. They're going to stay close. They're going to try to stay in it. And if Tua's out there over him, if Tua's out there, grab Tua, because Tua's available in most leagues. I would take Tua over Love. So take a look there. But Love's a good backup option.
Well, Kenny had a good response to this. Ouch. But let me tell you, I'm going to Jordan Love.
Okay.
I think Jordan Love is going to go out there and show some surprises and show that he is doing the right thing by taking a back seat to Aaron Rodgers and learning that offense. And you're going to see a good starting quarterback go in and play this week.
Oh, yeah, that could be possible. We're going to go to picks, Brad. We're going to run through them pretty quick. We've got about 10 minutes left in the show. We want to say thanks to everybody for watching and the continued support. Keep the questions coming in live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, at Last Gasp Fantasy. Check us out. Brad, we already know who won between the Jets and Indy. Indy smoked the Jets. They come out and prove that they're still a team and fighting for the hunt. We got Cleveland at Cincinnati. It's a 3.5 game. It's a 3.5 minus for Cincinnati. Who do you like in that game?
I like Cincinnati pulling this thing back together and winning. With Cleveland's run issue right now, I know Chubb's back, but I still think Cincinnati
wins
pulls
that.
this out.
I'm with you on that. We got Denver at Dallas. We both think Dallas is going to win that. No problem there. This is a game of the week that I think people are going to want to watch. Houston at Miami. It's going to be a great game. I think they're going to put up points, and it's going to be entertaining. Even though it's at Miami, they're going to have like 10 fans there. I take Miami in that game.
I think Tyrod Taylor comes in and shows that, hey, I'm a viable quarterback in this league and pulls out the victory.
Yep. We got Atlanta at New Orleans. I think New Orleans are the favorite by 6.5. I took Atlanta. I think they're going to come in there and beat them.
Wow. I'm going New Orleans.
Okay. We got Las Vegas at the Giants. Las Vegas is giving up 3.5. With all their troubles, the Giants have been playing pretty well. They said Danny Dimes is a sit. I like New York in that one. I picked the Giants over Las Vegas.
I can't go there. I think Derek Carr is going to show some things. I think Edwards is going to come through in this game, and I'm going to go with Vegas.
Nice. New England at Carolina. New England's a 3.5 favorite going into that game. I like New England to beat Carolina going into Carolina.
New England's showing some great games this year. I'm going to go New England as well.
Okay. We got Buffalo at Jacksonville. It's 14.5. Does Buffalo cover that spread?
Easily.
I think it's 30. I think you would have gotten more action from Vegas if it was 30 than if it was 14.5. I think Jacksonville scores maybe 7. They might get a touchdown.
But this is where I'm in a dilemma. I got Josh Allen. Yeah, he's going to have a great first half. And what is he going to do the second half?
He's going to hand the ball off.
Yes.
So you're SOL, Brad. We got Minnesota at Baltimore. Baltimore's minus 5.5. I think they cover that, and I think they win the game outright. I think they win by 15. Probably.
Baltimore, yes.
Yep. L.A. Chargers at Philadelphia, and this game is intriguing because not only because it's in your division and you love Dallas, but the Chargers have fallen off the wagon. They went from being a playoff contender to just being serviceable right now. Herbert's still making good numbers. The wide receivers are still scoring good. Eckler's still scoring, but they're not winning games.
Yes.
And regardless how many fantasy points your team gets, they're not winning games. They're not worth it.
And I'm pulling for Philadelphia on this one.
Oh, you can't root for your inner divine. You can't.
I got to go with my heart on this one.
I took the Chargers. You take Philly. That's good. Green Bay at Kansas City. Whew. It's a 2.5 point game. Green Bay's got all their troubles. Kansas City's got all their troubles. If Aaron Rodgers was healthy, I would have taken Green Bay. I'm taking Kansas City to win at home at Arrowhead.
Well, I love to pick this game because I'm going to pick love.
So that's great right there, And so you got to think about that. Also, Arizona at San Francisco. That's a 2.5 point game. I mean, all these are coin flips. Vegas gives you 3 for being at home. And so if you got a 2.5, that means you got 3. That means you were, that's it. So who do you like in the Arizona-San Francisco game?
I'm going to go Arizona.
Yep. And that game is oddly favored for me. Why? As a 7-1 team after losing last week to Green Bay 24-21, now it's only 2.5 going into San Francisco. They know something we don't know, and they're not telling anybody.
Well, I think it's the question mark on Murray.
But even if he's not,
yeah.
How's it 2.5? Is San Francisco's defense that good? Anyway, I'm taking Arizona, but something doesn't smell right there. If you're a betting man, stay away from that game. Stay as far away from that game if you can ever do it. It's terrible. That line's terrible.
But Vegas usually gets this thing right somehow.
I know Vegas knows more than anybody in the world. But that's how they know that score and that number. I can't answer that. Tennessee at LA Rams, Brad. What do you think there?
It's a tough one because I don't know what Tennessee's running game is going to be like. I've got all their running backs, and I hope they come out running the ball, throwing some little hitch passes, stuff like that. They're running backs, and they pull this off. And I'm going to go Tennessee just because I need them to.
No, I'm going the Rams 7-1. Yeah. They're Stafford, like I said, 38-0 last week, and then they decided to just sit all their starters. And McVay said the only reason he was sweating is because he might have taken them out too early.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, I think a local team here could understand is that put up 70 and be happy with it. Don't just win the game by 5. So, I'm highly disappointed with our team here, but, I think the Rams handle business and take it. And we'll go to the last game of the week, the Monday night thriller, Chicago at Pittsburgh. That's going to be a snooze fest, Brad.
Which defense is going to play?
Do they get more than 20 over under 20 total score?
Yeah, I think we're over 20.
Okay.
Total score.
So-
Not much, but I think we're over.
I mean, they're Fields had a big week last week. He was one of the top 10 in fantasy points and scores. So if he has it again, it'd be fine. But I think that game has 17-10 written all over it. Barely covers over 20, but I think Pittsburgh wins that game.
I'm going to go with you on this one. It's a tough one, but you're right. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh.
Okay. We're going to go to the stardom sit-em. We're about 5 minutes left of the show, folks. Jarvis Landry, we said stardom. Boston Scott, we said stardom. Last week we had Mike White and Pat Fremuth. Mike White got hurt, of course, and so that's a tough one to call. Sit them are Teddy Bridgewater, Danny Dimes, and any Baltimore running back. So just sit all of those because they're not going to get you any points. And then our sleeper picks of the week are Brian Edwards and Tyrod Taylor. So keep those in mind. If you want to play them, start them. As we get to the end of the show here, we always like to do a good Samaritan, talk about something positive in the show, and talk about ending with what players do outside of their performance on the field. In this one, we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, and it's called Titan Tuesdays. Typically, the only off day for these NFL players is on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday where they get a time to spend with their family and friends and do some things like that. But the Tennessee Titans players make it a point to go out to their local communities, whether it be hospitals or community services, schools, things like that, and spend their days off helping out the community. So when we talk about these players and the mental health and the physical health, for players to put their own time to help their community and give back, it's just a positive way. And if the least thing we can do is talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes on a show for out there, it's what we do. And so congrats and hats off to those guys there in Tennessee and the players there. And it's just a great thing, man.
This has been a great week, great show, a lot of interesting stuff. And in this live environment this week, it's just been totally fabulous and awesome. Guys, if you haven't had a chance to get down to your Spurriers, come have a drink, come have a meal, enjoy this atmosphere. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and Brad, the one thing that I'm interested to look into is seeing how the transition teams did this week, going into next week. How like New Orleans handles losing your quarterback and your captain of your team. How Vegas just keeps getting blows and blows and blows, and yet they still continue to win. Is that going to continue there? How does Cleveland handle all the turmoil in the middle of the week to decide whether or not they're going to stay good? The list goes on and on. Derrick Henry, first game without him and having to practice squad.
Tennessee runs over 30 times a game.
Yeah.
Are they going to continue to do that?
And so those are the things that I'm looking forward to see how those teams navigate those waters and whether or not they're able to continue where they were at before that.
Yeah.
And so that's super interesting there. And so I'm glad my Bucs are on a bye. They needed it. They need to get healthy. Does Dallas handles business easy, right?
Yeah, Dallas did.
Okay. So I'm interested to see if Dak plays. I think Dak does play.
I think Dak comes back this week.
And he has a monster game.
I do.
And so that's another interesting there. There's so many storylines that you can go over on week in and week out. And it's just great to talk about. If this week is anything like last week, I don't know how we're going to keep going like this. This thing just keeps giving to us, Brad. This is fantastic to talk about week in and week out, man.
I'm going to tell you right now, both Tennessee running backs scored a touchdown this week.
Really?
AP and McGinnis.
Nick Nichols and Nick Nichols and AP.
Yes, and AP both scored.
Man, you're on the AP train. No, I get it. I just can't. You know me. You have to show me. I'm like the show me state, whatever state that is. That's their motto, the show me state. You're that. You got to show me that you can do it. And AP's done it for years and years and years. But until he shows me, I'm not starting.
Oh, it might be a half-yard run.
But they're going to give it to him on the one who's going to dive in, the signature AP dive over the line. We want to say, thank you for listening on the live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter fans. The comments were great today. Like Brad said, the atmosphere is fantastic here. We can't wait for anybody else to come in. Send us your questions during the middle of the week. It's been a phenomenal week. We're ready to come back, start up next week. And we thank everybody for watching, and we hope you have a wonderful day. And we'll talk to you next week. Have a great one.